Welcome back. Thanks for joining me again for another episode of Trucker Money. It's Friday. We don't talk about trucking on Fridays. It's all about passive income investing, building a retirement, building an income outside of trucking. A lot of new subscribers. Thanks for joining me. Hey, thanks to my older time loyal subscribers too. You guys are great. You're wonderful. You're smart. You keep me on my toes here. When I make a mistake, you're quick to let me know. Appreciate that. So first, let's talk about every once in a while, you just got to stop and step back and reevaluate where you are, where you came from, what you're doing, and see if that's the same, continue to go down that path, see if that's what you want to do. So right now, we've had a remarkable rebound in the markets. I don't want to call it a recovery because I don't believe it is a recovery. There's still a lot of bad news out there and a lot of reckoning we have not done yet. So we'll call it a rebound. We all have our own thoughts and reasons on that. Not really wanting to say why or what's happening, just comment on what is happening, okay? So this is perhaps, I believe, statistically, it's the fastest rebound we've ever had in this country from a crash, okay? We're right back just about within a few percentage points of where we were before this pandemic hit back in February. That's 6 months, basically. That's the fastest rebound we've ever had in this country. And I don't think it's justified. There's a lot going on. The Fed is injecting money into the stock market. We haven't dealt with a lot of bankruptcies and things like that yet. We haven't dealt with any commercial real estate problems. They certainly exist, but we haven't had the foreclosures and the bad debt, all that stuff here yet. So there's a lot of reckoning yet to happen. So I don't believe this is necessarily a sustained rebound. Merely my opinion. This whole video is merely my opinion, not investment advice. Just something we like to talk about, throw ideas back and forth. So let's talk about the S&P 500 for a minute. What's going on with that? So in my opinion, the whole weighting of the S&P 500 is out of whack. And what do I mean by that? Well, right now, 5 companies make up 25% of the S&P 500. Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft. They've accounted. They're the companies driving this market higher, largely. They're not solely responsible. There's a lot of other companies that are doing well. But when you ignore 495 other stocks for the sake of 5 stocks, there's a problem. Okay? And I don't see a lot of people talking about this. When you say you take the strategy of I'm just going to throw all my money in the S&P 500 fund, over time I will match the market returns and everything will be good. Well, okay, so using that thought, now that you know 5 companies are making up 25% of the S&P 500. Are you getting that diversification you're paying for? You got to ask yourself. Because all 5 of these stocks are tech stocks, which are generally regarded as some of the more risky stocks you can invest in. Not the riskiest, but it's a higher risk right up there. So are you also getting the risk tolerance you believe you're getting? I'm not saying you are or you aren't, but just think about this and reevaluate it. Because there's a lot of companies that have not recovered, and they make up, they're in that S&P 500. There's not a lot of companies that are not doing well in the S&P 500. So, and there's you take the next several stocks down the list after these 5, and they make up a decent percentage too. In my opinion, the whole weighting of the S&P 500 is off, and it's not doing people any justice. So I just wanted to point that out because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. Now these 5 companies, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft, they've done very well, and most of it is justified because they've been killing it with numbers here with this whole work at home scenario, with people using more of their technologies. I mean, they're earning the money to justify their growth, but it's almost like the whole bigger picture is being ignored for the sake of these 5 companies. So just be aware of that, and I'm not saying you need to change your strategy, but just maybe rethink it. Maybe you're not getting the diversification you're paying for, or the risk tolerance you're paying for. if there's a correction in these companies, being that they make up 25% of the excuse me, 25% of the S&P 500, what do you think's going to happen to the S&P if these 5 companies correct? Just some food for thought there. Wanted to point that out. Now, the next thought I had was, in this whole pandemic, people don't learn from history. Some they do, some they don't, but I think you kind of know what I'm talking about. Especially investing, people are always out chasing that next hottest thing, which, hey, you can make millionaires real fast doing that. Some people win, but for every winner, there's probably 10 losers. You can get rich real fast, and you can also get poor really fast doing that, okay? That's why I take such a conservative stance. It's just my preference. Not saying you need to do that. But I've learned a lot about my portfolio through this pandemic, and I feel good about it. Probably 75% of my stocks have held in there really well. Before this hit, if you go back and remember, I weeded out some weakness leading into this and just held anything I had a conviction in. And that's served me very well, because my downside has been way less than the general market. I have not achieved the returns of the broader market, mostly because I don't invest in any of these 5 stocks I just talked about. But I've done quite well, and I just want to illustrate that for a minute here in a couple holdings. I've talked about before, I personally prefer Canadian banks over US banks. My personal preference, because in my opinion, I kind of generally regard them as a little bit more stable. Merely my opinion, not actionable advice. So let's talk about Royal Bank of Canada, ticker symbol RY, and Toronto Dominion, ticker symbol TD. RY is the biggest Canadian bank, and TD is right up there somewhere. I think they're right around number 5, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. Let's compare that to Bank of America, JP Morgan, and Wells Fargo, 3 of the biggest banks in the United States. Year-to-date returns on these stocks. Royal Bank of Canada, year-to-date return is -2. They're down 2.06%. Toronto Dominion, year-to-date, is down 9.96%. So they're down. That's not a great story. That's not great news. But let's compare it to Bank of America, who's down 26.04%. JP Morgan down 26.5%. And Wells Fargo down 54.29%, and they cut their dividend. That kind of illustrate, what being conservative can get you. It's not always about going out there and achieving the highest returns. A lot of times it's about preservation of capital too, and moderating risk. Having a portfolio is kind of like raising a child. When you get a new baby, you're all excited, you're checking on that baby all the time, you're peeking your head in, seeing what they're doing, just smothering them with attention. That's that way in a new portfolio too. You're always looking at every day, you're checking, seeing if you need to make trades. Oh, I got to do this. I'm excited, I need to do that. That kid starts to grow up, you're like, the kid's okay. I don't need to watch him nearly as much. He's not going to get into trouble. I trust him. It's kind of how it goes with your portfolio. And then one day your kid comes home from college, got this big, well-paying job, and probably makes more money than you. He's been lifting weights, he's been working out, he's all buffed up, and he can now put you in a headlock and take you down to the floor and teach you a thing or two. So you're like, whoa, I gotta start treating this child like an adult. I gotta start giving him the respect he deserves, handle him with a level of maturity. Well, it's the same thing with your portfolio. When you get up into higher dollar amounts, you gotta treat that portfolio with some maturity, and start giving it the respect it deserves, because eventually, if you build a dividend portfolio or an income portfolio, that portfolio might be throwing off more income than what you earn at your job. So you just got to step back and say, whoa, I gotta make really good decisions here. I gotta do a lot of homework, and use a level of caution that I wasn't using before, because I got a lot of money I'm responsible for and got to watch out for. So that's kind of how I play it on these, on some of these, like the banks I just illustrated. It's not always about shooting the lights out. It's about preservation of capital sometimes too. So just my thoughts on that. Now, let's get into here what I earned for the week in passive income, and who paid, and what I might have stuck more money into. Didn't have a lot of activity for the week. The only thing I stuck a little more money into was Bristol Myers Squibb. It's a newer position, just trying to build it up a little bit. And the only one that paid was Royal Bank of Canada. Bristol Myers yield is 2.8%. Royal Bank of Canada, 4.24%. So it's kind of a slow week. Had a couple dollars come in off a mud flap and a couple dollars off of YouTube now. So slow week, but we're working on it. We're just going to keep plugging away and see if we can build something here. And I hope you join me for that, because I intend to keep plugging along with this, and I hope you join me, because we're building an empire here. That may sound dramatic, but if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. And if you set your goals high and you don't achieve them, hey, no harm done. You can't achieve every goal you set, but if you never set a goal, you're never going to get anywhere. So it's kind of like driving a truck. You got to set a goal of getting to your destination. Otherwise, what are you going to do? Just drive around knocking on doors looking for somebody that'll take the load off your trailer? No, you got to have a defined destination that you want to get to. Devise a plan, follow it with discipline. Discipline is one of the biggest keys to all of this. It doesn't take a lot of money if you have a lot of time. If you don't have a lot of time, it takes more money. But the one thing it does take is discipline to execute the plan. You could have the best plan in the world. If you don't execute it, it's not going to work. So anyway, stick around. We'll see you again next week.